Imagine the scene: a freezing night in Trondheim, the northern wind sweeping through the city, snowflakes gently falling over the glowing lights of Lerkendal Stadium. The terraces are full, thousands of black and white scarves waving in rhythm, voices singing together as one. On the pitch stands Rosenborg Ballklub, a team that for most of the 20th century was just a modest club from a small Norwegian town, now preparing to face the giants of Europe: Real Madrid, AC Milan, Chelsea, names spoken with awe across the footballing world. And yet, here they were in Norway, facing Rosenborg, and often struggling. This is the extraordinary journey of Rosenborg, the kings of Norwegian football, who rose from humble beginnings to dominate their country and carve unforgettable nights. In the history of European football, this is not just a football story. It is the story of a dynasty, a culture, and a dream that carried Norway into the heart of the Champions League. Rosenborg's story begins in 1917, when a group of young men in Trondheim formed a football club called Odd, inspired by the famous club Odd from Skien. Only 2 years later, the name was changed to Rosenborg Ballklub, and a new identity was born. For decades, however, Rosenborg lived in the shadows. Norwegian football in the early and mid-20th century was dominated by Oslo clubs such as Vålerenga, Skien, and Lyn. Trondheim was far from the country's political and economic center, and Rosenborg often lingered in the lower divisions. They were a local team with loyal fans, but not yet a national power. Everything began to change in the 1960s. Rosenborg earned promotion to Norway's top division in 1967, and in their very first season they stunned the country by winning the league championship. The star of that team was Odd Iversen, known simply as Ivers, one of Norway's greatest natural goal scorers. Iversen's instinct in front of goal, his charisma, and his relentless hunger turned Rosenborg into a feared opponent. He won the league's top scorer title multiple times and became a national icon. With Iversen leading the line, Rosenborg tasted not only league success, but also won their first Norwegian Cup, announcing their arrival among the nation's elite. For the first time, Trondheim had a team that could challenge Oslo's dominance, but true greatness often requires more than one golden generation. Rosenborg's real transformation into a football dynasty came later, in the 1980s and especially the 1990s, when a man named Nils Arne Eggen took control. Eggen, a former Rosenborg player himself, was more than just a coach. He was a philosopher. He believed in an attacking style of football, quick passing, fluid movements, and relentless pressing. He wanted his teams to play fearlessly, no matter the opponent. His philosophy was deeply rooted in the idea of collectivism. The team was always greater than any individual. Every player had a role, and together, they formed something unstoppable. Under Eggen, Rosenborg began an era of domestic dominance that is almost unmatched in European football history. From 1992 until 2004, Rosenborg won the Norwegian League 13 times in a row. Year after year, they crushed opponents, lifting trophy after trophy. Their consistency was staggering. Even when rivals tried to strengthen, Rosenborg always found a way to stay on top. By the end of their golden era, Rosenborg had collected 26 league titles in total, along with 12 Norwegian Cups, creating a record that remains untouchable in Norway. The black and white stripes of Rosenborg had become a symbol of victory. Central to this dominance was Lerkendal Stadium. Built in 1947, it became a true fortress. By the 1990s, Lerkendal regularly hosted crowds of 20,000 or more, with the entire city of Trondheim rallying behind their team. The stadium was more than just a football ground. It was a gathering place, a cultural heart for the community. On European nights, when famous teams traveled north into the cold, Lerkendal became an intimidating cauldron. The roar of the fans, the freezing temperatures, and the fearless football on display created an atmosphere that few visiting teams could handle. And then there were the European adventures. Rosenborg became a regular in the UEFA Champions League, qualifying for the group stage for 11 consecutive seasons between 1995 and 2005. This was an extraordinary achievement for a club from Norway, a country with a short football season, limited resources, and harsh weather conditions. Yet Rosenborg showed that with organization, belief, and talent, even a small club could stand among the giants. The European nights brought unforgettable memories. In December 1996, Rosenborg traveled to Italy to face AC Milan at the legendary San Siro. Milan were one of the biggest teams in the world, full of superstars, and nobody gave Rosenborg a chance. But in a shocking twist, Rosenborg won 2-1, knocking Milan out of the Champions League. Harald Bratback scored the decisive goal, and Norwegian football had its most famous victory. That night, Rosenborg proved to the world that they were more than just domestic champions, they were true European challengers. Other magical moments followed. In 1997, Rosenborg defeated Real Madrid at Lekendal. In 1999, they stunned Borussia Dortmund with a 3-0 victory in Germany. They faced Juventus, Chelsea, and countless other giants, often holding their own. While Rosenborg never reached a Champions League semifinal or final, their consistent presence and fearless approach earned them respect across Europe. For Norwegian fans, these matches were more than just games. They were proof that Norway could belong on the world stage of football. Behind these achievements were players who became legends. Roar Strand, the heart of Rosenborg, played over 700 matches for the club and won 16 league titles. He was the embodiment of loyalty and determination, a player who sacrificed everything for the team. Harald Bratback, the striker who scored over 150 goals for Rosenborg, was remembered for his finishing and for that iconic goal against AC Milan. Minnie Jacobsen, the charismatic winger, delighted fans with his creativity and flair. Bent Skamelsrud, the captain and midfield maestro, was the steady presence that guided the team through its greatest years. And then there was John Carew, the powerful forward who began his career at Rosenborg before moving abroad to Valencia, winning La Liga, and making his mark internationally. These players, alongside many others, created the fabric of Rosenborg's golden era. But at the center of it all remained Nils Arne Eggen. His personality was larger than life. He was passionate, emotional, and deeply connected to his players. He believed in discipline, but also in freedom on the pitch. He trusted his players to express themselves, but always within the structure of the team's philosophy. Under his guidance, Rosenborg became not just a club, but a symbol of collective strength, hard work, and ambition. Eggen's influence extended beyond Trondheim. He inspired Norwegian football as a whole, proving that with the right mindset, Norwegian teams could achieve greatness. By the early 2000s, Rosenborg's reign in Europe began to fade. Football was changing, money was pouring into the Champions League, and small clubs found it increasingly difficult to compete against the financial powerhouses of Europe. Yet Rosenborg's legacy was already secured. Their 13 consecutive league titles remain one of the longest winning streaks in European history, alongside clubs like Skano Rika of Latvia and BK Borisov of Belarus. But unlike many other dynasties, Rosenborg also left a lasting impression on Europe's biggest stage. Their victories over Milan, Real Madrid, and Dortmund are remembered not just in Norway, but by football fans across the continent. Today, Rosenborg may not dominate the Eliteserien the way they once did. Norwegian football has become more balanced, with clubs like Molde and Bode Glimt rising to challenge their supremacy. But the memories of Rosenborg's golden age remain fresh in the minds of fans. The black and white stripes, the sound of the fans at Lekendal, the sight of Harald Bratback slotting home against Milan. These are images that define an era. For many Norwegians, Rosenborg was not just a club, it was a source of pride, proof that Norway could stand tall in the world of football. The legacy of Rosenborg lives on in the next generations. Many of Norway's great footballers, from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to Erling Haaland, grew up watching Rosenborg play in Europe. Inspired by their courage and success, Rosenborg showed that even in a small country with a short summer season and icy winters, football dreams could reach the highest level. So when you think of European football and the great underdog stories that capture our imagination, remember Rosenborg. Remember the nights when giants fell in Trondheim, when the cold winds of Norway carried the sound of victory across Europe. Remember the dynasty that turned a small club into a national symbol. From the streets of Trondheim to the floodlit stages of the Champions League, this was the rise of Rosenborg, Norway's greatest football story.